Hey, YouTube land, Pat Beliveau here again. It's May 3rd, 2020, Sunday. This one, I have nothing off my computer I'm reading or anything like that. This one is kind of, I won't say improvising, kind of, but something that I wanted to talk about, and I do talk about to my students. And I suppose this is geared more towards them, high school students that are getting out and sitting in places and going to jams and things like that. Um, just a quick video, well, relatively quick, I suppose. I might get a little long-winded, but hopefully not. Regarding, let's call it jam etiquette, I guess, for lack of a better term, I suppose. I attended a bunch when I was coming up, through high school and early university and stuff. I wanted to sit in and meet people, networking, learning more tunes, that kind of a thing. It was an important part of my growth. It's not something that I would do with any regularity now. I have hosted jams in the not too distant past. And I will again, but I try to be careful that I wouldn't want the scene to be just based on kind of a jam culture. I think that there's still the product that we put forward, I think, still has value, and we have to be careful how we treat the value of the product that we put forward. So, sitting in and jamming is cool every so often, but if it's constant, um, it it I think it has a tendency to diminish your worth. So, because anybody can hear you anywhere at any time, I think you have to be careful with that. I remember the first time I met Jan Arden was at a club here in Calgary called McQueen's Upstairs, and I was playing with a husband and wife duo, Sarah Hamilton and David, who have a number of years ago moved back to Ontario. And they brought me over to the bar to introduce me to her. And I remember her first manager, Neil McGonigal, saying to her, because she liked to go and sit in and be visible and that kind of a thing. And he said, if you want to move to the next level, you're going to have to stop doing that, because if you are constantly out and in front of people and doing it for free, then who's going to want to pay any kind of ticket price to come and hear your product? So you have to be careful about that stuff. I think you have to understand when you get to that point that you're going to, that's going to happen. I'm going to go back to how it all came about to me. And there's a message in here. And any students or younger people that are watching this video, I want you to remember this message. I think it's very important. It sure worked out for me. And as I explain this to you, you'll understand what I'm getting at. I mentioned this before in a previous video. I think it was the one that was going back to the beginning, it's called, something like that. In 1984, in grade 11, I was fortunate to be able to not only join my first semi-pro big band, or community big band, call it whatever you want, called the Wednesday Night Big Band, which is still an active group. And I sub in it every so often, actually. I was in that band for about, I think, altogether, 18, 19 years, close to 20 years. And that same year, I would have been 17 at the time, grade 11 for me. That same year, I mentioned this too, that in a previous video, that one of my main mentors from here, Greg Bush, trumpet player, teaching out on Vancouver Island now in Nanaimo, at the university there, Vancouver Island University, started a big band here in Calgary with local pros called the Western Connection Big Band. And he came out to do a clinic at my high school and heard me playing, and I was just honking out, hopefully within the realm of taste and musicality, but when necessary, just honking out notes with reckless abandon when it was necessary. And he approached me and he said, "How would you like to come and play in my pro band?" Yeah, please. Where do I sign? So I started playing in his band in grade 11. And I was in that band for a number of years. Now, I was just getting into improvising at the time. Late high school and early university is when I really started to buckle down more and really concentrate on the whole improv thing. And I remember playing in Greg's big band. We were playing at a venue, Calgary folk, you'll kind of know where I'm talking about, I think, generally speaking anyway, down on 5th Avenue Southwest, where the AGT Tower used to be. Right at the base of that, there used to be a small club there called the Music Box. Long since gone. But I remember us playing there, and Greg had a bunch of his own arrangements, and he was setting up, a set to play, and we were going to rehearse them, and then we were going to play later on that evening, or later on that afternoon. And he called There Will Never Be Another You, and I opened it up. I'm playing baritone sax. And I opened it up, and lo and behold, a 96-bar baritone solo. And basically, my heart just sank. And I called him over, and I said, Greg, I don't even know what half this stuff means, man. This is hieroglyphics to me. And I said, I'm not going to be able to do this. I'm going to sound like a complete idiot. I don't know enough about this yet. So he said, okay, I'm going to take that solo off your hands now. He gave it to Dave Edgar. Those of you in Calgary who know who Dave was sitting next to me. So he said, okay, I'm going to give it to Dave instead. So Dave took the solo instead. But he said to me, you're going to learn this. And he kind of went, you're going to learn this tune. I went, okay, but you got to help me. I need some guidance on this. You need to tell me what these little chord symbols and things are, because I don't know what to tell you. I would probably have an easier time reading Mandarin. Anyway. So he proceeded to do that. He got me recordings of different people doing it. He got me the Jamie Aebersold play-along that had There Will Never Be Another You on it. The reason why there was such a big Barry solo in it is because his concept of the arrangement came from a Jerry Mulligan, Chet Baker album. So there was a solo in the Barry sax, 96 bars. So that'd be 3 choruses through. And then also a trumpet solo. So I buckled down, and I listened to those recordings, and I went over with the Aebersold and all that kind of stuff. And Greg and I got together constantly talking about lessons, talking about what the chord symbols mean, and talking about 2-5-1s and analyzing tonal centers and going through all this stuff, that I really needed to know just to understand what the progression, what it meant, and all that other stuff. So I worked it, and I worked it, and I worked it because I wanted to not disappoint him, and I didn't want to disappoint myself. I didn't want to just slough it off and go, nah, forget it. I'm not going to do that. No, I wanted to learn this stuff. So I thought, this is going to be my pet project. So I, pardon the expression, just worked the shit out of that tune. So that's the first standard I ever learned, and I worked it hard. And I remember him playing at a club on 17th Avenue and 4th Street, actually just east of that intersection on the north side of 17th Avenue. Calgary people who are my vintage or older will probably remember Marty's, that club, Marty's. Just a hole in the wall, tiny thing, could hold maybe 40, 50 people. But it was like one of the main jazz venues in town. And I remember Greg had a gig there in a quartet. And he said to me, why don't you come down and bring your Barry? I knew 2 things. I knew a B-flat blues, and I knew a couple heads on it. I'd learned that, and I knew There Will Never Be Another You. And Greg knew that. So he invited me down. I came in, walked into Marty's, listened to them play a few tunes, and then Greg announced, he said, we've got a young up-and-coming saxophonist, Barry saxophonist, that is here tonight, and we're going to invite him up to the stage. And here he is, Pat Beliveau, come on up. So I had my horn, I came up, and he knew exactly what was going on. He turns to me and he says, so what do you want to play? Now, I knew 1 or 2 of the guys in the quartet. I didn't know everybody. So Greg turns to me and says, "What do you want to play?" I went, well, how about we start with a B flat blues? Just, so I can get kind of in the game here and stuff. He's like, "Yeah, cool. You got a head you want to do?" And we agreed on something. I can't remember what. So we played that. Everything went great. I think we traded some fours and blah, blah, all that stuff too. So that was done. And then he said, "Since you're up here, why don't we do one more?" I said, "Okay, great." And he said, "Well, what do you want to do? Pick something." And I went, wow, so many to choose from. Wow, how about, I'll remember, I won't say I'll remember April. How about, There Will Never Be Another You in E flat? He goes, what a great, here I'm, sorry, banging this music stand. I've got my phone on here. What a great choice. Let's do that. Okay, guys, There Will Never Be Another You in E flat. Here we go. And he counted it off. And I had been working that chart like crazy. So everything went very well. After that was done, I put my horn away and sat down and listened to them. And I walked out of there feeling happy about what I'd done. Now, here's the moral of the story. As I tell my students, whether you're one of my university students or one of my private students, if you're going to attend a jam or sit in somewhere, don't go there not knowing anything. And if it's a situation where you only know 2 tunes like I did, then you go to that jam or that sit-in, whatever, and you play those 2 tunes and you play the shit out of them. And then you sit down. And then the next week, you come back with 2 more learned. And then you pick from those 4 and you play the shit out of those ones. And then you sit down. And then you come back next week with 2 more learned and you've got 6. Or even more if you can. But let's say you have 6. Then you pick from those 6 and you play the bejesus out of those 6. And then you learn 2 more for next week and you come back with 8 or more, whatever you can do. And after you're done, say thank you and sit down and listen. Listen to the other guys, right? Don't put yourself in a position to try to play tunes you don't know. I've seen that over the years far too many times. Even when there's a fake book, right? If you don't know the tune, if you're not sure how to navigate the changes properly and you're unfamiliar with the changes, there's still going to be stumbling blocks. So deal with what you know until you have enough vocabulary that you can, maybe play tunes that you're not as familiar with, but changes and progressions and things like that well enough that you'd be able to get through the progression and not sound like you're on Pluto, right? Does that make sense? This is real important because I've seen far too many, and usually it's students, far too many of them get up on stage, sound good for a few tunes, the ones they know, go figure, and then somebody calls a tune that they're not familiar with or have no idea about it at all, and then they try to play on it, and they sound like a traffic jam. That's a problem, guys. Don't do it. Don't do that. And here's the reason why. Number 1, you want to go away feeling good about what you did so that you're motivated to come back and continue on from what you did the previous week. Second thing is, you never know who's in the audience listening. And if you go up there and you're stumbling all over it, that's not cool. That's not a good impression to give somebody. Be comfortable playing what you know. If somebody comes up and calls a tune that you don't know, say, you know what, guys? Thanks. I don't really know this one. I'm going to sit this one out, right? Put your ego aside. You have to do what's going to be best for your outcome. And trying to stand up there and fake your way through changes you don't know is not putting your best foot forward. I have seen it far too many times, and I feel for these guys. But then I start to get mad because I think, you know what? You should know better. Why would you do that? Why would you put yourself in that position to go up there and step all over these tunes because you don't know them? Don't do it. Don't do it. No, 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 no. You play what you know. When you're done, say thank you, sit down. Done. That's it. That's all you have to do. And then come back with more learn and build up your repertoire from there. Give yourself a reason to go and learn tunes. That's a reason, right? Come back with however many tunes you have and play the shit out of them, right? So you're always putting your best foot forward. I don't know why you'd want to do it any other way. I really don't. Why would you want to stand up there and sound like shit? I don't know, but I've seen it far too many times. Don't do it. Do yourself a favor, right? Trust me on this. Put your best foot forward at all times. The best foot forward you can for that time, place, and circumstance. Don't play games with that. Don't do it. It's not going to be good for you, right? And depending on who's sitting in the audience, you have one chance to make a first impression. So make it a good one. You know, whatever you play, if you're a sax player or whatever bass player, somebody in the audience, there might be a band leader out there looking for someone just like you. And if you go up there and sound like a dog's breakfast, forget it. You're going to have to, there's a lot of coming back from that you're going to have to do before somebody reconsiders hiring you. You're going to have to prove yourself all over again, a second time. And even then, they're going to be skeptical. So be careful with that, right? And remember that as you grow in your career, it takes a long time to build up a reputation and mere moments to destroy it. So be careful with that. Please be careful. That is my moral of the story for you. I've seen it far too many times, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. And then I get mad, but it makes me feel uncomfortable because I can't imagine how whoever's playing feels, right? Especially when they're stepping all over it and not sounding good, right? And the people with ears out there and the people who maybe you want to make an impression on and stuff like that, not only band leaders and stuff, but your peers as well, right? The people that you're playing with. You know, you want to put your best foot forward for them too. So don't play stuff you don't know, okay? You know, one of the things Greg taught me was it's not a shame to not know, but it is to not find out. And if somebody calls a tune that you don't know, say, thanks, guys. I don't really know this tune, so I'm going to sit this one out. I do that now. If somebody calls a tune that I'm not comfortable with or I don't know, maybe it's a more obscure tune or something, I say, guys, you go ahead. I'll come up a few tunes later. You guys have at her for a little bit. I'm going, to get myself a drink or whatever. There's no harm in that. There's no shame in that. I refuse to put myself in positions that don't make me sound good. I have to take it upon myself to be a good judge of this, to make sure that I am constantly in a situation that I'm comfortable with and that I can exist within, the way I want, right? The best that I can do for that time, place, and circumstance. Why you'd want to do it any other way, I'm not sure, but I see it a lot. I've seen it a lot. I don't see it as much now, but I still do. And that's why I'm making this video. Yes, I've been ranting for 18 minutes, yes. But you know what? This is a thing for me that kind of makes my fillings melt, Like anyway. You get what I'm getting at. I know. I sound like a broken record now. But anyway, that's, and I got to thank Greg for that, for instilling that in me, inviting me down to Marty's to sit in with him, knowing those two tunes. He didn't have to come across and say, dude, I know you only know two tunes, so let's just play those, right? He made it sound like, he gave me the opportunity to kind of run things the way I wanted to benefit me. That's an important lesson. So keep that in mind when doing this stuff. Okay? All right. Sermon is finished. So, as I always say, down below, I have an email address, youtube@belltones.ca. If you have any comments, questions, topic suggestions, anything like that, feel free to send them to me. Don't be shy. Don't spam me. Don't send me back a bunch of weird stuff, that doesn't pertain to anything that these videos are even about, because I will delete you, and I have no problem doing that. Thanks for the effort, but right? So don't. Nobody has, which is great, and I appreciate that. But I have to keep saying that because I'm just waiting for the first time that's going to happen. So anyway, thank you for your time. Hope all is going well with all of you, and take care, and I'll see you soon.